there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, you can call me Xanthi, and today's episode is based on minutes 126 through 130 of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. In this set of minutes, Rose saves Finn from sacrificing himself. Leia laments that the galaxy has lost all hope, the spark is out. And then Luke and Leia have an unexpected reunion, and Luke gets ready to face Kylo Ren. It's quite a set of minutes, and today's esteemed guest is Camila, also known as BoricuaWookiee. I am very excited to have you, Camila.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so excited to be on. Thank you for inviting me to come join you and chat about these phenomenal minutes.
So I only met Camila last week on another stream. Like, we were both guests on a stream about Star Wars music. Darth Chaco's, shout out to Darth Chaco, who's actually a future guest. And I was just really struck by like your insight and just your perspective, and also I just knew that you would be the perfect person for this episode. So yay.
Thank you.
We
That's
made
so
it
kind.
happen.
I feel the same exact way. That was such a phenomenal conversation that we
Yeah.
had on his episode, chatting about all of the music. It was amazing. So I'm so excited to be here, chat with
Yeah.
you about this.
It was so much fun. Okay. So usually we kind of just go in chronological order, but like spend extra time at where it's needed, and then we can always
hmm
go back and touch on other things. But shall we do that?
Let's do it.
Okay, so here we have Finn, and we have this like choir music happening, and Finn sincerely believes that he's about to sacrifice himself. What do you make of that? Do you think he actually
Uh,
wants to do this?
I think, yes, I think he actually wants to do it, but I think he wants to do it to fulfill what everyone believed of him in the beginning of the movie. So at the beginning, it's like Rose calls him this resistance hero, and she talks about how her and Paige looked up to him, and Paige was like, when I heard about Finn, I knew that he was a resistance hero. And so I feel like throughout the movie, and even a little bit at the end of The Force Awakens, Finn has this title of resistance hero put on him, but he never believes it himself. So in his mind, when he's thinking that to sacrifice himself is to actually fulfill that title of resistance hero that everyone has been calling him. So yeah, I do think that he is truly ready to sacrifice himself, but the question is, are his motives really for the resistance, or are they kind of selfish in a way?
That's a really good point. I didn't think about it as like he sort of wanting to fulfill the expectation that others have placed on him. Yeah, that's a good point. I do believe that he thinks he's going to sacrifice himself, and I think the music also takes us into that sphere as well. Um,
hmm
since it gets all requiem like, it gets all, you know, tragic right there. That's like the type
Absolutely.
of music that you hear when someone's about to die in a very tragic, heroic way.
Yep.
Um, but I think just like he, Poe says don't do it, and Poe's in charge. Poe says don't do
hmm
it. Rose, she's not in charge, but she's also like, don't do this. And this is not like something that people have, his superiors have directed him to do. This is just, what you said, selfish. I mean, obviously, like, not to say that Finn is overall a selfish character, but in this
Right.
moment, even though he maybe truly believes that this is the thing he's supposed to do, it is selfish. It is selfish.
hmm
He's taking it on himself, and actually, this is like, this is the reason why Finn, even though he, has many talents, is not a resistance leader yet.
hmm
He,
Yeah.
he's a hero in other ways, and he's definitely rising up and learning. But this actually shows that these little missions that maybe he knows from being a stormtrooper that, you're just a body, you could just sacrifice, just, you just, if he's still a stormtrooper or, any infantry, maybe, he's probably trained to just, put his body on the line and, Poe and those people know that there's a bigger, game at play and that
Mm.
Finn actually as a person is important.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. That's such a great, yeah, that's such a great point about the having that soldier mentality versus, yeah, you're fighting for a bigger purpose, with the resistance, because it feels like at the end of Force Awakens there's like, is Finn really part of the resistance yet? And it's like, I wouldn't say that he's really part of resistance until the end of The Last Jedi.
I agree.
Um, yeah, and what you're saying, I feel like really solidifies that for sure.
Hmm. It's sort of like Han Solo. He's not like really part of the rebellion until he, mm, verbalizes that commitment. Even though
Absolutely.
it's just a job before that.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Here, I'm actually very interested in the use of choir in this instance. I think it's quite interesting, and I've heard some people say, or sort of wonder whether it's really Star Wars or not. Um, I mean, obviously it is Star Wars, but I guess the question is more so like this is a rare thing to hear. Um,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on the use of choir?
Um, I personally love it. I think that the rare instances we hear in Star Wars are all kind of similar. Um,
Okay.
in my mind, it's whenever you're hearing that choir, it kind of signals in your brain something tragic is about to happen. Um, at least in the instance I'm remembering, I'm thinking Duel of the Fates, and then this specifically, it's when I first heard was watching the minutes, I had to rewind it because I was like, is that? It sounded so much like Anakin's betrayal.
Right?
Eh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I had to go and
Totally.
play Anakin's betrayal at the same time as I was playing this, and I was like, it made me think, okay, so what then are they trying to say? Like, what is John Williams trying to say by using something so similar to Anakin's betrayal at this moment? Because it's not like Finn is about to execute Order 66 or anything. Um, but what you said about how, yeah, the selfishness of Finn's decision to do this does make me think of Anakin's selfishness. So maybe
Yeah,
there's a
Anakin's
connection
also
there.
trying to, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they're like, I always try to be careful about over extrapolating meaning because people could do that in many different directions. And I always say,
Mm,
like, let's not QAnon this stuff. But
mm,
I think noticing like these similarities and then, as long as we own this is like our interpretation, I think it's like totally interesting to explore these
yeah,
connections. And so,
absolutely.
you know, since we're in this space, um, I mean, I would go ahead and think that yes, they're both acting selfishly. In this case, Rose actually intercepts him. In Anakin's
Mm-hmm.
case, no one was able to save him.
Oh.
And
Hurts every
although
time.
although like Obi-Wan tried
Yeah.
and it didn't work out obviously.
Nope.
And here Rose tries and she is successful. Now there's something interesting in the choir moment that happens here, and are you familiar with the Dies Irae motif?
I am not.
Okay, so Dies Irae is like a set of four notes, and it goes back to like hundreds of years ago. Um, it's like a Latin chant, like Dies Irae. It means like Day of Wrath. It's often quoted in like not only classical romantic music and chants like way back in the day, but
Hmm.
in film scores it pops up a lot, and it's sort of like it's a motif where if you know Dies Irae, you'll start hearing it everywhere. And it's used very in choice times. So it's used definitely in Anakin's betrayal. It's
Hmm.
definitely used um, in like so many. It's like it's used in a lot of places in Star Wars. Put it that way. And the way that I always have you seen The Nightmare Before Christmas?
I have, yes.
Okay, so the way that I remember, or the way I tell people to remember it, is think of making Christmas or making Christmas. Do-do-do-do. That's the Dies Irae. So that's how you can
Wow.
remember it. And so whenever that happens, whenever that pops up in Star Wars, I have like a Dies Irae radar in my ears that's like there's a Dies Irae. So it often symbolizes like something tragic, um, something foreboding,
Hmm.
death, things like that. So we hear that in Anakin's betrayal, and also this is so cool. We hear it here. Let's see. I wrote. I tried to write this out. Let's see. So this is the choirs. It's and then we get the Dies Irae right at the end of his like right before
Wow.
Rose intercepts him, and actually you can barely hear the last note of it. Like it does, the choir does sing it, but the last note is sort of also cut off by the. It's like that thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Wow, my
like
mind is
where the
blown.
music changes right there, it's like it cuts the Dies Irae off short, and it's so cool.
Yeah, and it's like yeah, because when it cuts it off, there's no music for an extended period of time until like Rose's theme comes in, right?
Yeah, I
Wow.
yeah, I find that really cool.
That's
So
I have I have a question. Okay,
sure.
so because I just thought about this when you were talking about it. Another score that this reminds me of is the Your Father Would Be Proud from Rogue One.
Yes.
And is that also in it's not because it's not similar. I think I just connected in my head because they're both very tragic as well. Um, but are those connected at all, either with the Dies Irae?
I it is some I can't remember. Is it that? Yes. It is that track. Yes. There's Dies Irae in that track. So like it doesn't the two tracks aren't related, but the Dies Irae shows up in both of them. So in that way they share a degree of separation via the Dies Irae.
Ah,
But yes, and also I believe it's Jin's theme that has the Dies Irae sort of baked in it, which I think is what is in Your Father Must Be Proud. I sometimes I get
mhm.
the track names mixed up, but yes, in short, yes, that is based on Dies Irae as well.
Great. I'm definitely gonna have to clue in my Dies Irae radar
You already
for
spotted
future
one, and so
tragedies.
that's amazing. Yeah, you're gonna notice it everywhere now. I promise.
Can't wait.
um, so yay, there's that. Okay. Then Rose is like, I saved you, dummy. That's how we're going to win. Not fighting what we hate, saving what we love.
Mhm.
Cue her theme. I think it's really interesting here because it's sort of a fake out. The way that it starts sounds like the Force theme.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
it almost sounds like it's about to go, but it goes, which is very similar. So they share the same contour.
Yes, I listened to the previous 5 minutes, your discussion about Star Wars Explained about and loved everything you were saying about Rose's theme because I had absolutely never. I'll be honest, I don't think I realized that Rose had a theme um, until I went back and was re-listening to a lot of the music for our conversation last week, and yeah, and how you were talking about it's very Yoda-like and young Anakin-like, and even now talking about the Force theme. I think it definitely makes me. It's a theme that I didn't know that I needed in my life. I'll say that.
Nice. And luckily, it's all over The Last Jedi, actually.
Mhm.
You know, music is like one of those things where once you already have the like receptor for it,
Mhm.
so now you have like a DS Irae receptor, now that you know what it is. So now whenever it pops by, it's not going to fly past you anymore. It's going to like stick to that because you're ready for it. So once you're ready for Rose's theme, then you're ready to hear it all the time.
There you go. Can't wait.
Yeah. Um, what do you think of this whole scene here?
Um, I I will be honest. I always found it a hair strange that it's like in the background you have the explosion of the door and then it's kind of like fireworks as the two share a kiss. It just it always felt a little strange to me, and rewatching it before our conversation today still makes it feel a little strange. Um and I was listening to the commentary, hoping that maybe Ryan Johnson would remark on why there was the kiss, but he doesn't. He kind of just breezes past it. So, um,
Yeah.
I think yeah, it always felt a little strange and unearned in a sense. I mean, I yeah, I will boil it down to
Never
strange in
comes
the
up
light of what's
again.
going on.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. How about you?
Yeah, that part has always struck me as a little bit surprising and a little bit cheesy.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, and those moments just make me think like, okay, what am I misunderstanding? What have I misunderstood about the nature of their feelings leading up to this that would help me to understand to get this scene a little bit more?
Yeah.
So far, what I come up with is there's so much adrenaline that they're that they're she's literally just like, I don't know, he almost died. So also, I mean, we do learn in the novelization that it's pretty clear that she does have feelings for him, and
Mhm.
so I mean, it makes me feel like, well, he almost died. Like I'm gonna just go for it. Just gotta go for it.
Yeah, yeah. That definitely. I haven't read the novelization, so I know I'm missing parts of the bigger story. But that for sure, it definitely felt one-sided. Um, Especially because it's like with with Finn up until that point, or I guess even beyond that point, he's been thinking about Ray this entire time. So yeah, adrenaline makes the most sense. I
Yeah,
would say in my head. That's a great point.
yeah. Like I don't know. I'm sure this happens with friends all the time. You go through some experience, and then you're like, oh, oh, did we just? Hmm. Oops. It'd be interesting to
Yeah,
know how how like after the battle's over, like what those conversations are like.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be the next Star. We never get the next day once the adrenaline dies down in Star Wars. That's something I would love to see.
I bet that would be a very like depressing day actually.
Oh,
Because like it
absolutely.
after you finish something big, it's always like I don't know about you, but like I always feel like so weird for the next few days. Like what do I do with myself?
Yeah, I feel like the entire however many, what are there, 10 people left of the resistance? They just need
And
a
they have to,
big,
and they're
long
mourning
nap.
all the people that they, like, a lot of stuff just happened. I mean, well, we're getting to it. We're getting to it.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
then we cut to Leia. I've never
Mm,
seen her look so like she's given up. It's like
agreed.
strange to see Leia, who is this the leader in so many ways emotionally, like to see her say that the spark is out, the galaxy has lost hope is straight up tragic.
Mm-hmm.
It can't feel any lower than that.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's because Leia has always been, I mean, from A New Hope, it's Leia has always been the most consistently hopeful character, and truly is, I would say, the heart of the rebellion, um, through and through. And then even in the Resistance, and even in some of the canon novels, and Leia's always been the she's always been very clear about always fighting for what's right and always finding hope in the darkness. And so, yeah, this moment when she's like, the spark is out, the galaxy has lost all its hope. It's like, are you referring to the galaxy, or are you also referring to yourself?
And your
And
son.
it, yeah, exactly, because it's eh, when she says that she was holding out hope for Ben, but there's not any good in him left. That was another heavy moment, because it's like in the previous episode in The Force Awakens, she says to Han that there's still good in him. I know, which reminds us of when Padme says it about Anakin. And so, like mother, like daughter. So when she says that she's lost all the hope in her son, it truly is, so it's so devastating. It hurts so much to see Leia at that point.
I I agree. You know, I have a whole bullet point in my notes that says Leia is the rock of Star Wars. She's the
you're
rock of the
you're
rebellion and the rock of the Skywalker family. But okay, we'll have to get in we'll have to expound on that point um
yeah.
in a bit, because whole conversation, totally agree with you, and just yes, times a million. Um Leia, oh, where do I even start? I mean, this is so like
Oh,
emotional to watch. It's
yeah.
so
It
emotional.
hurts.
Um, it does. So, okay. Then we see, okay, first of all, while she's saying this, we hear this French horn lament. And I believe the last time I remember hearing this sort of French horn chorale type music. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like,
Hmm.
do, do, is when I think it's like 30 minutes into the movie, is when she's sitting in front of the window on the Radis, and with hyperspace going by her, and she's like, her mug is like, or her whatever
Yeah.
is shaking, and she's just like going like, she has like her head in her hands. We also hear a similar French horn lament chorale type
Hmm.
thing. And so um yeah, that the French horn is just, the French horn stacked on French horn is just so, um, it feels very Leia to me.
Hmm.
Anyway, so then Luke walks in.
Hmm.
We hear the Force theme, and he approaches Leia, and um, we hear Luke and Leia's theme.
Hmm.
And, well, she's like, Luke.
Hmm.
And then I know what you're going to say. I changed my hair. sorry. And she's like, I know you are. I came to face him, Leia. I know my son is gone. No one's ever really gone.
Oh.
And then he hands her the dice. Han and Leia. That's when he's walking away.
Mm-hmm.
And then etc. That whole progression is just like pulls at every. It just
it rips your like we're both laughing because
I'm like
it
laugh
hurts
crying.
so much.
I know.
Exactly.
This is one of those awesome times in the score where the track is not it's actually fully preserved. You know, usually the tracks, you know, like the soundtrack, usually what John Williams wrote, you know, there will be like some edits and some like extra spaces added, you know, just to cut to how the scene ends up being edited. But here, the exact progression, you know, there's nothing taken away or added. It is preserved. So it really feels like John Williams crafted this, you know, progression of Force theme, Luke and Leia, Han and Leia, and then to the other thing. Looks like he definitely crafted that very specifically, you know, to when the dice, you know, and when they're talking. And it's a very tender scene, you know, to score. And wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's so powerful that the progression from Force and Luke and Leia, and I went and I rewatched the ending of Empire Strikes Back,
For Han
also
and Leia.
because yeah, and I taking a step back just to the Last Jedi as a whole, I think there's always a lot of comparisons made between The Last Jedi and The Empire Strikes Back, and I think that you get that similar moment of Leia. She's not definitely nowhere near as hopeless as she is in The Last Jedi as she is in Empire Strikes Back, but there's that similar sense of feeling a little hopeless about Han, but then Luke is able to comfort her in The Empire Strikes Back at the end, and then you still have that moment of comfort between the two of them. And so to kind of see that revisited here in a time where Leia is at her hopeless, that Luke is able to provide that comfort. It feels like when we've seen it throughout Star Wars, Luke has been a person that brings Leia hope when she's feeling hopeless, which is a tough thing to do because I feel like she's never really hopeless. So that she has her brother there to give that to her.
And I think now that you mention the end of Empire Strikes Back, that's when Han is gone from her or being taken away from her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But she also, that's when they first, you know, say, I love you, or she does. And so it's like he's gone, but she has a little piece of him to hold on to
Yeah.
while he's gone. And in this scene, this is also like he's obviously gone, he's dead. But then Luke gives her the dice.
Yeah.
And it's a little something for her to keep of him as well.
Hmm.
Um, s- I really love when Luke and Leia's theme comes in here because it is so sparingly used in Star Wars. Like we do hear
Mm-hmm.
Leia's theme more often, um, but the last time that we've actually heard Luke and Leia's theme is in Return of the Jedi.
Really?
Yeah, so this is the very
Wow.
first time we hear Luke and Leia since the original trilogy. So I feel like that restraint, because John Williams does not have to use restraint with his leitmotifs, and he doesn't with a lot of them. With a lot of them,
Right.
like the Force theme is like everywhere.
Hmm.
Makes sense, and a lot of themes
Yeah.
pop up very, you know. But the Luke and Leia theme is preserved. It's very special, and
Hmm.
it's reserved for like very special times. And so when it comes up here, it's like earned. It feels like we've waited so long for this, Even when they're making force
Yes.
contact earlier, we don't hear it then. We only hear
Mm-hmm.
it now. And so
Hmm.
it just it makes me cherish it even more. And I think that's what makes it like even more emotional here for me.
Yeah, that's, oh my gosh, that's such a great point, because you really you yeah, because you haven't heard it in so long that you really feel the importance and the weight of the power of these two when they're together. Because I mean, when you look at Star Wars as a whole, Luke and Leia really aren't together often throughout Star Wars. I mean,
Well,
Return of the Jedi is right. Is probably
yeah.
the time they're together the most, but even then,
Well, they are a yes and no. Like, yes, they're not together that much, but even when they are together, it's not like we always hear this theme. And
right.
it was only introduced in Return of the Jedi. And of course, okay, there are practical reasons for this because, scoring, obviously, John Williams did not know that they were going to be brother and sister. And so this is definitely, um, there are practical reasons why this came about. But then once it was established, you know, a lot of people wonder why it wasn't used in Revenge of the Sith when they were born.
Right.
But the thing
Yeah, I was just
is,
about to say that.
and for me, the use of the theme, like when it's used and how sparingly it's used, hones my interpretation of what it symbolizes. So the fact
Yep.
that it's not used just whenever they're talking to each other or when they're born makes me feel like this is a very specific theme used for when they are eh, feeling, acknowledging their sibling bond, like their sibling
Mm.
love. It's not just when they're
Hmm.
fighting or what. It's when they're being touchy feely, and it's when they're being like, I love you, I miss you, and we're siblings. So like when they're born, they don't know each other. It's not the same. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Yeah. You definitely, definitely, yeah. It's this moment between the two of them, and then when you hear it in Empire Strikes, when do you hear it in Return of the Jedi? I'm not remembering.
like when they're talking on the bridge, like basically when that's when she finds out that she is his sister.
Okay,
And
makes
so
sense.
it really is not like just Luke and Leia. It's like Luke and Leia, and we know that we are siblings now. And
Mm-hmm,
we
hmm.
are, you know, feeling good about it, I guess you could say. Because like when we hear it here, they haven't seen each other in a decade. Like,
Yeah.
think Leia she could be so pissed at him, like for so many reasons. And
Right.
hearing the theme here, which the last time we heard it was when they're like, oh my gosh, we're related, and they're like sort of feeling a lot of love for each other in Return of the Jedi. Hearing Luke and Leia here really makes me believe like she forgives him and they are ending this on a good note.
Hmm. Yeah, that totally speaks to Leia's character, and how that you're right, that she doesn't hold a grudge toward Luke. She recognizes that, maybe things could have been a little easier with Luke part of the resistance, and maybe we wouldn't have had as many losses, because I feel like this entire um this in The Last Jedi is for Leia, at least in her journey, is she goes through so many losses, and she even says, I can't to hold I can't handle any more losses. And yeah, and I lost my train of thought of what I was saying.
That's all right.
but yeah, no, it feels, it's a very weighty moment for sure, and it's very powerful to see these two back together on screen, and in that Leia doesn't hold any resentment toward Luke. It makes me wonder, do you think she knew that he was a Force projection from that moment? Could she sense that?
I actually don't know. I certainly didn't know when I was watching it in theaters.
Same.
So I guess my read of it was that no one knew. Um,
Yeah.
and I can see, like, some people will point out evidence that, like, C3PO maybe knew, or like Leia probably knew, or and other things. And I can see it in retrospect, but I don't know. It just sort of depends on what interpretation I'm going with for the day. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know. I to this day I don't know. I feel like maybe she thought he was there, but also I think she realized it at some point.
Yeah, it's like at the end when he dies, she the way that she and Ray look at each other, I believe, and it feels like then she definitely senses, okay, if she didn't know that he was a Force projection, then she senses that either he is a Force projection, or at least that Kylo Ren killed him, um, or anyway that he died in a sense. But I think about that every time I watch it. If she does sense that he's a Force projection or not.
See, I
So
feel
obviously,
silly in retrospect because I'm like, oh, he's not like leaving tracks on the ground. Like, oh, I see all. Oh, okay. There's a lot of reasons why, And Ryan Johnson made sure to, um, you know, was not leave any tracks and like sort of give lots of
right?
cues. Like he did give lots of cues that Luke
Yeah.
wasn't really there, but I personally did not pick up on them the first time I watched this. And
Yep.
the reason, I mean, to be honest, when Luke shows up, I'm sort of in a dream state. Like I'm like drop everything and what is happening? Oh my gosh, I can't like I just, the whole last act of the movie, I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What is happening?
Yeah.
This is so wild. Wow. Like I'm all like worked up and just like sort of in an alternate state. Like this whole
Hmm.
thing, even if he actually were there, this whole thing is like so dreamlike. Like she hasn't seen him in 10 years. Like I haven't seen like I feel I haven't seen them together in their 10 years, you know, I'm feeling like so heightened and I feel like Leia is probably a little bit like that too. Not necessarily,
Yep.
super worked up, but like definitely this is like something from a dream where whether it's real or not, it's you're just sort of stunned to like see your brother walk through the door and like this whole exchange is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm stepping out of my body to experience this." So, you know, the whole thing is dreamlike
Hmm.
and um yeah, that's how I think of that.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. If it's like if a part of her brain recognizes that he is a Force projection, then that part of her brain is probably like, let's just shut up and not think about that. No matter what, your brother is in front of you right now. You finally see him. You haven't seen him in
Right.
over 10 years. Like, just savor the moment,
Right. Like
savor that you have him here.
imagine your brother like showing up after 10 years and apologizing and being really tender, like kisses your head, like this whole thing and you just being like, "Wait. Just to be clear, are you actually here or is this a projection? Like what is the mechanism by which you're appearing here?" Like I feel like that's not her priority.
No, definitely not.
Like
Definitely not her priority. Not Ryan Johnson's priority. Not something the audience would want
hold up,
at
explain
all.
this. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, but yeah, totally.
So, okay, I want to bring something up about Luke and Leia's theme, and Han and Leia's theme, and Leia's theme in general.
Hmm.
And there are some really interesting connections between them all.
Mm.
So, one of them is okay. Well, Leia's theme is like, so you have that major sixth, the interval, which means that there's 6 notes between the bottom and the top. And then Han and Leia's theme also starts with, so it also starts with the same major sixth. And I know this has been discussed many times. This is, it's also in Marion's theme from Indiana Jones. John Williams loves his major sixths for sort of love themes, I guess, and sort of, even though Leia's theme is just Leia's theme, it was introduced sort of as a potential love theme, but then it just stuck with just Leia. And then when she did get a love theme with Han, they went with the major sixth again. Now, Luke and Leia doesn't have a major sixth. It has a perfect fourth and then a perfect fifth. So John Williams has never confirmed an association here, but that's also how the Star Wars main theme starts. So it's almost like the main theme, Luke and Leia's theme, it's almost like they share the main theme.
I love that.
And also, all 3 of those themes have a very related chord progression. How's the best way to explain this? So they basically, it's not the same exact first 2 chords, but the second chord that they both share is a related chord because it shares the 6th scale degree, which just means like, and also I will note that Hera's theme also does this. Okay. How do I explain this? So for an E major, the 6th scale, the flat 6th scale degree would be the C. So they all kind of go some version of. I explained that really crappy, but the chord progression for all 3 of those Leia themes is essentially the same for the first 2 chords. So I think it's interesting that of all these 3, Han doesn't get it. John Williams didn't write Han Solo a theme until the Solo movie. So, and he wrote the theme, and then John Powell did the rest of it. But he did write Han Solo's theme.
Gotcha.
But Leia has like 3 themes.
Yeah, she does.
And the chord progression, they all revolve around her. They all share the same, like her theme is the bedrock of like all these other themes that revolve around her. And she shares, one could say that there's a lot of striking similarities by means of the same first 3 notes with the main theme, with the main title. So Leia, case in point, I guess, Leia's music shows us that she's very important.
She is, yes. You heard it here first. If you didn't think Leia was important, just listen to how she's everywhere in Star Wars, and then you will know. So yeah, no, because I was totally thinking about that, about how it's like Luke and Leia, and then Han and Leia, but the constant is Leia, and it's through the 2 of those themes, at least in these 5 minutes, and that she's the, as you were saying earlier, she's the rock of the resistance, of the rebellion of Star Wars. I mean, I would say that she's the rock of Star Wars for sure.
Totally. And the musicologist Frank Lehman, who will be on the show in a few episodes. Everyone, I
Exciting.
know, I'm very excited. He noticed one further step to the main theme that I did not notice, which was, first of all, he is also very careful to point out in his thematic catalog, which I will link in the description, that Williams himself does not provide direct testimony to this connection, but he also points out, in addition to the, you know, that also, you know how the main theme goes. So this part, this triplet, in Luke and Leia's theme in the B section, it also goes like, you know how it's like,
Yeah.
it also has the same contour as the. So there's like two parts of Luke and Leia's theme that are mirrored in the main theme. So not just the first part, but also the second part. But we don't get the second part here. So yeah. Still though, I really like the idea that like John Williams, I mean, I don't know what his work process is for this, but you know, maybe let's just say he's in Return of the Jedi thinking like, okay, Leia's about to find, okay, Leia is Luke's sister. Turns out they both are potential hopes for the galaxy. You know, there is another. And okay, so we need a new theme for Luke and Leia. Well, Luke, so far the main theme is sort of like Luke's theme, but hey, let's give something with like the same harmonies as Leia's theme, but also embed the main theme in it. And that will tie Luke and Leia together to the main theme. Like, I feel like, you know, that I can, especially since this is the last of the Leia themes that he came up with, I can see how this may have been intentional. Even if not, though, it is there. So it's a fun coincidence either way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as fans, we can just sit here and be super excited to see the connection and like you were saying earlier, theorize and extrapolate what we believe. Even if that's not the intention, it's cool to see the similarities, yeah, whether they're coincidental or not. Because it adds layers and it adds depth and it helps you I think the things that you pull out of the music help you connect with the story in a way that's very personal to you and helping you understand, okay, like we talk about, okay, what is the story telling me based on my own experiences and my own point of view and the connections that you can draw with the music. Like for me, how anytime I hear Leia's theme, whether it's as part of Han and Leia or Luke and Leia or just Leia by itself, when it's playing, when you see Hera in the Bad Batch, like Leia is one of my favorite characters and constantly inspires me. So when I hear it and I connect more to that moment and that's something that I personally connect with. So it's really amazing to be able to see those connections and to connect with them in a personal way based on your own what matters to you most.
Absolutely. And this is something I have to remind myself all the time is like when I'm talking to other people about Star Wars, other than probably the nine that you know for at least the first three or the first six or the first nine or the first 11 movies, outside of that, we probably are basing all of our opinions off of different bits of media that we have dipped into. So like my opinions on things change after, you know, watching Clone Wars or Rebels or reading a certain book or, you know, reading a novelization of a movie and sort of these ideas that I have, you know, my initial thoughts about characters or about plots or even about the music, like it might start in one formation and then with each like new piece of information or each new conversation or, you know, each new theme that I notice or color or cinematography thing that I notice, like it all kind of shapes, kind of like changes shape just a little. Like, you know, usually a lot of things stay relatively in place, but it's like, it's not it's never fixed. So like I'm always like,
Mm-mm.
as of today, my current opinion based on what I have so far consumed and thought about. As of today, this is what I think. But if you ask me again in a year, I don't know if I may have had 10 conversations about this that really morphed my view and made me notice something different. That now I see something different in it. Go figure.
Absolutely. Star Wars is active. It's always it's yeah, it's every time you revisit, I know a lot of people talk about, oh, my ranking, quote unquote ranking of favorite Star Wars movies always changes when you revisit them. And I feel like it should, because you watch movies and you watch these movies at different points in your life and they appeal to different things that you're going through. I think that a lot of times when we view Star Wars solely as escapism rather than a mirror reflecting back on our own world, we miss a lot.
Oh,
Um,
I love what you just said. That's how I see Star Wars. I don't see it as like
yeah,
media. Or, I mean, it is
no.
media, but to me, it's not
Hmm.
like a franchise, or it's not like and something that I'm going to just review as a fixed thing, like
Hmm.
as a cultural commentator. Like I'm just reviewing movies and reviewing books. To me, Star Wars is just like an extra lens that I just. It's not even that it's better than everything else, though. I mean, I feel that way, but I don't know everything else. So like, I actually,
Right.
it's all subjective in the end. But it's just the expansive lens that I haven't been invested in my whole life. So it just, for me, it's a lens for me to interpret my own life through and just sort
Hmm.
of, um, and that's why it never gets old for me, because it's not just, I'm not talking about Star Wars. I feel like I'm talking about life with Star Wars as the common thing that I'm connecting with people on. So it's like we, I feel like I'm constantly talking with people about like life in general while we're talking about this fictional thing that we both know.
Hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just everywhere in life, in my life, Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure if we revisited these 5 minutes in a year, 5 years, whatever, we would have a different perspective on them based on different perspectives we've received of The Last Jedi. Like you were saying, new media in Star Wars that'll come out, that'll be in conversation with this moment. Things. I mean, going back to what I mentioned earlier with Leia's theme playing when you first see Hera.
It's actually a
And
different theme, but it's
is it really?
yeah, but it's written in the Leia style.
I got you. I got okay. So the Leia style, but yeah, that. Thank you, because I've been sitting when
It's
I was
literally
watching
the
the
first
episode.
same two notes and chords. So it's very like my honestly my first watch of Rebels before I was like trying to analyze the music and before I realized that Hera had a new theme. I just kept being confused of like, why does Leia's theme keep playing? And it took me a while to realize like, oh, maybe they're like actually going with this for Hera. And
Yeah,
so I thought the same thing too when I started.
I mean, but there's something to be said there. It's again, at least for what I'm picking out of that in my head, it's O'Hara has that similar sense of
She has the same similar spirit.
hopefulness. Exactly, is like is the Leia type character, and then hearing it again and after we've lost Carrie Fisher is kind of like there's a new character that can step into those shoes and be that not replace, of course, never replace, but be a new kind of Leia for maybe a new generation in a sense.
Totally.
The way that they're kind of similar. At least that's how it connects in my head, and that's why it
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
me emotional when I hear it.
I think that's totally valid. And I think that's probably even, I don't know, maybe what they are going for. And yeah, I think it's a great way to, continue the legacy sort of, by mirroring like the pre-established harmonic language for, a rebellious princess character.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm.
and and, rebel leader, very strong, Anyway, um, I agree. So Leia's very strong. It's a strong theme for a strong
Mm-hmm.
character. Um,
Oh yeah.
I do want to, I want to, I'm going to put a link to this in the show notes, but are you familiar with Leonard Bernstein?
The name sounds
Bernstein.
very
Why did I say Bernstein?
familiar.
Okay, he wrote West Side Story and a lot of other stuff.
Oh, okay, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I said, why did I say Bernstein? It's because my Alexa said it this morning. Okay, so he wrote an operetta called Candide, based on the Voltaire novel, and it really flopped at first.
Oh no.
But there's actually the final act, I believe. At the end, there's this big chorus piece called "Make Our Garden Grow," um, and Luke and Leia's theme really reminds me of that. It's a very beautiful. It's a very beautiful piece. It goes like, "We built." It's like, "We built our house and chop." It starts in the same way, and it's sung by a tenor, and the chorus joins in, and the piece is sort of about. So the operetta is, and the novel is sort of based on this like teacher that teaches these, two kids, that young adults, that the world is perfect and nothing bad ever happens. And it's like this really skewed like upbringing that they have of like everything's perfect. And, one of them's a really, really rich princess and the other one is like not. And I don't know. Point is, they go through really horrific stuff during the novel and musical. And so they kind of learn throughout that, like, wow, the world is not perfect, but that's okay. And so at the end, they sort of realize, like, okay, we're not the best. The world's not the best, but we can make do with what we have and we can still make our garden grow. And so that they settle down with, like, for a humble but still beautiful life. And the opening of it is really reminds, or Luke and Leia's theme really reminds me of the opening of it. It's uncanny. And then, of course, Luke and Leia's theme goes in a very different place. It's definitely not like a copy. I would never say that it's a copy of Make Our Garden Grow, but
Yeah.
the vibe, sort of like with Hera's theme, for those who don't know, that's like a Rebels character from this animated show. Hera's theme is reminiscent of Leia's theme, and it kind of makes us feel a similar way. For
Hmm.
me, Luke and Leia's theme, even if it's not intentional, it sort of makes me feel a similar peace and hard won, hard fought, like just peace and contentedness, and just like that I feel when I hear this other Leonard Bernstein piece.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're speaking to, I think, how I feel about it as well. I haven't given Luke and Leia's theme much thought
Because
like you
it
mentioned
doesn't
earlier, we
show up
don't
that
hear it.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm over here just constantly crying about Leia's theme because you hear it all the time. But yeah, Luke and Leia. Yeah, you're right. But it does feel. I feel like when I hear it, and now after this conversation, when I hear it in the future, it's just like breathing a sigh of relief that, oh my gosh, we've been through so much, but there's still hope because we're together, and and
Yeah.
and we're still united.
And now that I think of it, we only really hear their theme when they're in a moment of reprieve,
Mm,
like when they're, taking a step away from the Ewoks to talk on the bridge, or like, they're taking a step away from the action. Um,
mhm,
it's not like Rose's theme. We hear when she is in action and when she's not. We hear it, in more places. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, Luke and Leia's theme is like definitely like a reprieve. Like, let's just, yeah, we're siblings and we love it. We love each other. And
Exactly.
um, yeah. So right after that, it leads into what, for the whole last minute of this 5 minutes, it is all revolves around an F minor chord. And then it's going to go like it's going to do this for like 2 minutes. It's going to
Yeah.
spill over into the next week's episode, and that is a really, it's a big departure. That in itself I have not heard in Star Wars. If not definitely not very much, if ever, in John Williams' Star Wars. Maybe I'm wrong, but for him to sort of just stay on one chord with a repetitive ostinato, like a repeated type of figure, is rare. John Williams, he jumps around harmonies. I mean, honestly, it's so hard to play John Williams. Like, I've talked to musicians who have played on the scores, and they're all like, they all say it's like, actually, it's pretty hard music to play because he writes
Wow.
really complicated things. So like, to stay on this would have been like the easiest part to play. And the fact that he stays on this, it's striking. And it's when Luke's walking out, to face, and it's sort of like it makes me feel like we're in a permanent holding place. We're just like waiting. We're like on pins and needles for like all while this F minor chord is playing, which is much more common in like other modern film scores. But not for a John Williams score. So here it stands out. It really sticks out for him.
Yeah, it's definitely, I could definitely feel the suspense building in that moment. When it starts, my brain was like, "Oh, it's kind of like the Imperial March," but then my brain was like waiting for the change, and
Yeah.
I was trying to recall the Imperial March in my head, but all I could hear was the March of the Resistance. Um, but um, but yeah, because it kind of at the beginning, I was like, okay, it feels like the Imperial March, but then I was waiting for the next part of the Imperial March to come, but it never does.
Yeah.
And it's just that I was like, it's not, it's very intense, and it's very, like you said, it's very striking for
Yeah.
sure.
Waiting for something to happen is like exactly the effect that it has on me too, right there. Um, and that's also when C-3PO is like, Master Luke. And yeah, that's how this minute really ends. I mean, I guess we also hear Kylo Ren saying like, want you to point every gun you have at that man or whatever he says. Um, and yeah, so that's that's all I have for chronological notes. But going back to the idea of Leia as the Rock of the Rebellion, I mean, we did already kind of touch on this a lot, but it's something that I know we both think about a lot. And I mean,
Hmm.
this is one of the reasons, like, in the conversation that we met during last week, we both talked about Leia quite a bit. And
Hmm.
what have you, what's your relationship with Leia as a character?
Um, it it's actually, I would say it's a pretty new relationship with Leia. I haven't, the way that I feel and how deeply entrenched I am into Star Wars now is also it's probably only 2 years ago was when I really started getting into Star Wars in the way that I am
Mm-hmm.
now. And so in the, I think the moment when I started really connecting with Leia was reading the Claudia Gray novel Bloodline. Have you had a chance to read that one?
Nope. That's still
You
on my
def
list.
Yeah, you'll love it.
I'm
That's
very
that's when
excited to read it, though.
you're gonna love it. It's fantastic. So that's the moment when, and again, and I think being older and connecting more with the things that she was struggling with, is how I started falling more in love with her character. And then going back and rewatching the movies, um, and yeah, just learning more about Leia and her purpose in in the rebellion and in the resistance, and how she's always fought for good and fought for hope, and has always been about fighting for hope. to see where she comes from. I'm also a massive Padme fan, and Bail Organa fan. So to see the influences of those two in her lives is really inspiring to me. And yeah, I think my relationship with her is new, but it's because of the point that I am in my life. The things that she's going through have been kind of like lessons. Like she's taught me a lot about resilience and about always being hopeful and always fighting for hope and looking for good in people, and being a leader too. She's such a leader,
Mm.
from a young age. Has always been really inspiring, for me. So yeah.
Leia is someone who I think I took for granted growing up.
Hmm.
And also, I feel like the new media has made me realize how much I actually like her. So, like,
Hmm.
the sequel trilogy actually, helped me deepen my view and my, I guess, relationship with Leia as a character.
Hmm.
And even though I haven't read Bloodline, like any of the other books that I've read, which is, like a lot of the novelizations or any of the books where she is one of many characters,
Hmm.
I'm always struck by the depth of her. And also, like in the Last Jedi novelization, we get like a lot more of her internal monologue, her internal, state, especially when she's like about to die and she realizes that she needs to live for the resistance and like she needs to see this through to the end, and she kind of, snaps back and, floats back or whatever, with the force. And also just seeing how in the sequel trilogy how she could have gone like the Jedi way, but
Yeah.
she decided to stay, committed to being a resistance slash like rebel leader.
Yep.
um I think that's shows a lot of strength. And
Hmm.
she could have done like, the Jedi thing seems like it's the cooler thing in many ways, but she's
Absolutely.
not thinking about just herself. She's never, I I I, I took her for granted, and I think maybe it's because um there's so much conversation, dialogue. It's not really great dialogue, but it's not always great dialogue, but there's so much conversation about like female characters in films and how to make them and whatever.
Hmm.
Um that sometimes, even though representation is good, sometimes I do feel like the representation is just like tossed out and like not done well. Like, oh, here's a female
Hmm.
character. Like I think there's a lot of female characters that aren't really that strong characters, straight up, like where I feel
Hmm.
like it was forced. And I hate that I sound sort of like the people who don't want female characters, but sometimes I do think it's forced because sometimes it really does, because sometimes it really is forced. And
Yeah.
a lot of my favorite characters in Star Wars the are the dudes. But that's
Hmm.
because the creators have decided to invest many movies and many books and a lot of, I don't know, a lot of feeling and purpose behind these characters.
Hmm.
So to just slap in like a female character, and I'm not saying this is Ray, by the way, for in case anyone's wondering, but like, but this maybe is a critique of some other characters who have not been given the chance to develop as much yet, because
Hmm.
I feel like Leia is one that, I don't know, she she really worked out for me, like
Yeah.
in my mind. And it like that is a developed, character.
Hmm. Hmm. I can't wait for you to read Bloodline because
I'm
I think
so
it
excited.
it like it really solidifies that Leia's that without Leia in the Senate, the New Republic would have
Mm.
fallen faster. I mean, I believe it's in the Empire Strikes Back, point of view, from a certain
Certain
point
point
of
of view.
view.
Hmm.
Yeah, I believe there's a Yoda talks about how he would have preferred to train Leia over Luke. I
Hmm.
think I
Yeah.
haven't read it, but I'm just going off of what I've heard. Um, And I know I've heard a lot of people saying, "Yeah, I think that would be so much better if Leia was the Jedi." And in my mind, I'm like, we have to take a step back, look at the bigger picture. Does the resistance exist if Leia becomes a Jedi?
Right.
And I don't think so,
She's not
because
selfish.
no. And doesn't, Luke absolutely, I don't think, is the senator that Leia could be. It would be the two of them, as Jedi. And then, yeah, of course, I feel like somebody would have stepped up. It's the question of what if, I know there's a lot of what if questions that happen in Star Wars that we ask as fans. But yeah, in my mind, if Leia goes the Jedi route, the galaxy would have been worse off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mhm.
Also, I feel like Leia is, well, okay, in terms of her being like the bedrock of the Skywalker family, um, she is the one who she completes Rey's training, um,
Mhm.
who is a Skywalker, and
Mhm.
um,
Of course, of course.
obviously, but I mean, she carries the torch of, Luke's the one who establishes the Jedi Academy, but Leia sort of is the one that actually passes the torch in the end.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess I won't get into Rise of Skywalker here, but she does say one of my favorite quotes in the Rise of Skywalker, which is funny because I don't know how they did that. It must have been already filmed or some spliced together. But she
Yeah.
says something toward the beginning when Rey's like, sort of, she messes up on something, and Rey is like, "I'm sorry," and she starts to, she goes like, "It's not what it looks like," or, "I know what it looks like." She says, "I know what it looks like," and Leia says like, "Don't tell me what things. Don't tell me, just tell me how things are. Don't tell me what they look like." Like Leia, it doesn't. She cuts through the bullshit,
Hmm.
um, and is such a nurturing leader. So, okay, that was a lot of Leia talk. I guess, okay, let me just say one last thing about this whole set of minutes together about the music. Um, from a certain point of view, we could look at all the themes that pop up, the progression of themes that pop up in this set of minutes, and see how each theme that pops up is sort of related to the one that came before it by like 1 degree of separation, sort of like an exquisite corpse. Like we get Rose's theme, which we already talked about how the beginning of it sounds like the Force theme. And then
Hmm.
we actually do get the Force theme. And then the Force theme, you know, gives way to Luke and Leia and, powerful light side beings. And which brings Han and Leia, into the Star Wars timeline. And we get Han and Leia's theme, who give birth to, of course, Ben Solo, who is now the turmoiled Kylo Ren, and that's when we get the ominous F minor thing.
Hmm.
So it almost like encapsulates the whole Star Wars saga in this quick progression of leitmotifs. It's sort of like, in case you missed it, here's a recap of everything. Here's Rose. Rose, I guess, could symbolize, the ideals that Leia in this scene seems to have lost. Sort of Rose. I feel like Rose. I would like to see Rose be the future of the Resistance. Actually, a future
Ooh.
Resistance leader.
Oh,
So
yes.
Rose is like, she has that hopefulness in her theme, like the willingness to fight for peace. Like she has this cheesy line, but like she means it. Like she's genuine. Like that's sort of like young Leia, right?
Yeah.
Like Rose means it. She's like, we have to fight for what we love, like save what we love. Like Rose is all about justice and like peace, and she's almost naive about it. She's not like super. Even though her sister died, she still has this spirit in her. So we get, it starts with Rose carrying it while Leia is not able to in this moment, and then yeah, we go all the way through to Kylo Ren about to face Luke at the end.
Amazing. I love that. I love now. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. That's such a that's so fascinating and I totally see how, yeah, these 5 minutes are the Skywalker, a summary of the Skywalker saga. in a way, or at least like
Yeah.
a good chunk of it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
We even
Rose
get
is
like
carrying that
we even get the
torch.
little Han, you know, uh, the dice and the quote and we get a little
Hmm.
bit of, we get the family together, this is sort of like a reunion
Skywalker
in
family
many ways.
reunion.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. Before
absolutely.
Luke sort of gets Leia's blessing to fight his nephew, her son.
Hmm. Hmm. And I do wonder if this moment of Luke coming back and helping Leia regain some of that hopefulness, because it's like in the Rise of Skywalker, she's main. It's in the Last Jedi. We think that she's lost all hope in her son, but then in the Rise of Skywalker, we see that she really hasn't, because she in the end sacrifices herself for him. So I think that's another thing that I love about Leia, is that it felt like Luke lost all hope um, in Ben, but Leia, it seems like she did, but she really didn't, and still maintained that to the end.
Or maybe she did, but then she regained it. And,
Yeah,
this is the spark part, the spark.
yeah.
She thinks the spark is out, but then in all of the ways, because of Luke's impact in this scene, like
Mhm.
Luke stepped up and, Luke changed the timeline. Luke was so important here. And
Mhm.
because he revitalized the spark, of the
Mhm.
rebellion and of, Leia's hope in her son, even. And I feel like, yeah, Luke showed up at just the right time. And
Right.
yeah, only Luke probably could have done that for her.
Absolutely, because it's like at the beginning of the movie, and even in The Force Awakens, this massive resistance is all about like, we need Luke to show the galaxy that that we can fight back against the First Order. But in this moment, it's Luke showed a very small group of people, gave a very small group of people hope, and it reminds me of what Yoda said in terms of pass on what you've learned, and he
Mm-hmm.
passed on hope to them, and then therefore this small group of resistance are able to rebuild and pass on what they've learned to the greater galaxy. And then we see that come to fruition at the end, when there are more of us, Poe, there are more of us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And another favorite line from The Rise of Skywalker, which was like, you know, they're not a fleet. They're not a fleet. They're just people, or something like that. Toward the end, when they do show, when the rebels, when the resistance do show up, and they're like, "What the hell is this fleet?" Like it's like this ragtag like group, and that's the thing. Like the rebellion is made up of a lot of really special people, and the people, like including Finn, are important, not just
Mm-hmm.
as bodies of this like large military. Like it's the people that are making a big difference. Rose, Leia, Luke when he shows up, like they're all making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, to run down the motifs we heard the Dies Irae incidental motif. We heard Rose. We heard the Force theme. We heard Luke and Leia. We heard Han and Leia. And we heard the Luke's Last Stand, which is, the F minor incidental motif. And all of these leitmotif names come from the complete catalog of Star Wars themes, I believe, which is the catalog that Frank Lehman maintains on his website, which you can download at franklehman.com/Star Wars. Um, the soundtrack, we're at the end of Battle of Crate and the beginning of The Spark. Yeah. Um, Before we end, Camilla, I would love if you could tell everyone where people can find you online.
Absolutely. So you can find me on TikTok, at BoricuaWookiee. Also, I have a Star Wars narrative podcast that you can, it's called Beings of the Galaxy. You can find that on Instagram at Beings of the Galaxy Pod. It's also streaming wherever you listen to podcasts. And it is a narrative podcast that takes you on a journey to discover the slices of life that make up our galaxy far, far away.
Wait, let me just say
Um,
that I listened to an episode of it last night and I'm so impressed. I
oh,
really do
thank
recommend
you.
people check out this podcast. It's like audio drama type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
Thank you so
stories.
much for
It's like
listening.
it's like fictional stories. And do you write them?
I do. Yes, yes. So each episode is there are original characters set in the Star Wars universe, and they're the ordinary people, the everyday people, the the people in the background that are in the background of the rebellion, or in the background of the Senate, or in the background of all of these planets we know of.
Is each episode distinct from the other, or do you have to listen in order?
No, they're distinct. So
Oh,
it's an
great. Okay.
anthology. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So you
Because
can
I
totally
listened to
go out of
episode
order.
one, and I'm like, do I go in order? Or do cool. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I think it's such a. I mean, I think it's such a creative project that you're doing. So Camilla is the narrator of it, and the one that I listened to last night was episode one, and so they're short stories. It's like 15 minutes,
Hmm.
and there's it's basically the story of like a mother looking for her kid who was a Jedi and wondering
Correct.
if she survived the purge. And
Yep.
she finds this like list of, the Order 66 Jedi executions and is hoping that she doesn't see that her kid's name is on the list. And so, um, yeah, I, it's all Star Wars characters that they're not, there, it takes place in the Star Wars universe. Um, but like Camilla said, they're original characters. Like Camilla wrote it all. Um, and there's like music and everything. It's really
Yes.
cool. I think it's so cool.
Thank you. Thank you. A friend of mine, who you can find on the tagged in on the podcast, Wafa, is my editor, and she is spectacular and makes each episode sound as beautiful and as emotional and as moving as they do. So the episodes would not be as fantastic as they
Shout out
are
to
without
Wafa.
Wafa. Shout out to Wafa. I'm indebted to Wafa for sure.
Amazing. All these links will be in the show notes. Sorry I cut you off, but I just had to talk about your podcast.
No, no worries. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it.
Um, was there anywhere else people can find you? Or I forgot.
Nope. I
Okay,
think that's it. Yeah.
great. And you can find Star Wars Music Minute on Twitter at Star Wars Musemin, on Instagram at Star Wars Music Minute. Um, I'm also at Chrysanthi Tan on Instagram and Twitter. And um, I have to confess, I mean, it's not a confession. It's only a confession because I haven't posted yet. But um, Camilla was one of the people who inspired me who encouraged me to join TikTok. So there is
Yay!
currently a Star Wars Music Minute TikTok, but I have not
Woo!
posted on it. So I mentioned that,
Can't wait to go
but you
follow.
know, there might not be anything when you see it. But there will be,
Fine.
and I will be brave enough to do that soon. Maybe I should make my first TikTok about the Luke and the Leia's theme thing. Something about Leia's theme,
Ooh.
about the relationship.
Well,
I don't know.
I am gonna go follow you
You
immediately
will be my
and
first
make tell.
follower because I haven't told
Yes,
anyone until right now.
perfect. I can't first. I'll be first, and then I will share your handle with everyone and tell everyone to go
Oh
follow
my
you,
god.
because you are brilliant and a much needed person within the Star Wars TikTok community. That's for sure.
Well, thank you.
You're
Um,
welcome.
and that wraps up this episode. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. And I am very excited to embark on season two pretty soon after this film ends in a few weeks. Um, let me know on social media what films you are most interested in. I think I'm going to go release order. So I think I'm probably going to do A New Hope somewhat soon. But yeah, this whole thing is very new to me. So it's been an awesome last 6 months since starting this channel slash show. And I couldn't, I wouldn't have been able to keep on doing it without all the encouragement from everyone. I didn't know that there were so many like Star Wars music lovers out there who wanted to like get really, really into it. And there really are, and that makes me very happy because, you know, my favorite topics all in one. So, yay. Thank you, everyone. That's all. Thank you for listening and sharing the show, and I'll see you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.